It rained the morning we buried my mother. Not a poetic drizzle, not a symbolic cleansing. Just cold, soaking rain that flattened her favorite tulips and made every black suit cling to damp skin. I stood under the edge of the canopy, not to stay dry, I didn't care about that, but to keep from sinking into the mud along with her. The priest's words blurred into background noise, the way a train hums past a station without stopping. Helen Rivers was a generous woman. She gave more than she ever asked for. Yes, she did. Too much, probably. People nodded solemnly, wiped their eyes, and shifted in place as if the earth under them felt unfamiliar. My suit felt like a borrowed costume, too stiff in the shoulders and too loose at the waist. I hadn't worn it since college interviews, and that felt like a lifetime ago. To my left stood my cousin Lila, wrapped in black silk and designer grief. Her eyes were dry, but she looked good. Tasteful, elegant, like she was ready for a press photo. She caught my eye and offered a sympathetic smile, the kind that never touches the eyes. "I'm so sorry, Rai," she whispered as the casket lowered. "She meant everything to you." She was right, and that's what made her presence feel like a spider on a cracked window, poised, watching, waiting to crawl through the gap. Lila and I had grown up together. Our mothers were sisters, and our family, small as it was, stuck close. When my dad walked out on us when I was 10, my mom stepped in harder than ever. She worked double shifts as a nurse, made every birthday feel magical, and turned our tiny two-bedroom into a kingdom of quiet strength. She was the reason I even made it to college. I knew even if I had to drop out to take care of her when the cancer came. Lila, on the other hand, had always been glossy. Fundraisers, debate team, charity events. Anything that came with a spotlight and a hashtag. While I spent my weekends at the library or helping mom with meds, Lila was posting photos of herself holding orphaned puppies in Guatemala. She was the family success story. At least that's what everyone said. After the funeral, the reception moved to the church basement. Beige walls, stale coffee, finger sandwiches. People spoke in hushed tones as if louder voices might wake the dead. "She was an angel," said Mrs. Fletcher from next door. "Always brought me soup when I was sick." "She knitted hats for the NICU babies," another added. "She helped my son get sober." I didn't speak. I just stood by the window, watching the rain smear the glass, trying to breathe in a world that didn't have her in it anymore. Lila approached again, 2 paper cups in hand. "Chamomile," she said, offering one. "You haven't eaten. Thought this might help." I took it, more from habit than gratitude. Her perfume was soft, expensive. My mom would have called it a bit much for a funeral. "You know," she said, leaning against the wall beside me, "Aunt Helen left a mark on everyone. I've been thinking we should do something. A foundation, maybe. Something in her name." I turned to her slowly. "A foundation?" "Yeah, something lasting. To keep her legacy alive. She gave so much, Rai. We should make sure people remember." It sounded beautiful. Noble, even. But something in her tone made my stomach shift. I nodded politely. "Maybe. It's a lot to think about." She touched my arm, light as a butterfly. "Don't worry, I'll handle the details." That was the first red flag. I didn't know it then, but it was the moment the trap was set. The lawyer's office smelled like lemon polish and old decisions. I sat stiffly in a leather chair across from a mahogany desk, the kind that made you feel small even when you were the one inheriting something. I didn't bring anyone with me. I didn't want the noise. I just wanted to hear her words one last time. Even if it came filtered through legalese and signatures. Mr. Blake, my mother's attorney for almost 20 years, wore his usual half-frown, half-concerned expression. He was in his 70s now, and he adjusted his glasses with the weight of someone who had seen too many families fall apart over what was left behind. "Ryan," he said, sliding the sealed envelope toward me. This is a copy of the final will and testament your mother updated shortly before her passing. You're the sole executor, as she designated. I nodded. The words barely landed. She left a message for you, too. Audio. He clicked a button on a small speaker. Then her voice filled the room. Ryan, if you're hearing this, it means I'm gone, and I'm sorry. I wish I could be there with you a little longer. You've given me more comfort than you'll ever know. And now I want to give you something back. You know the house. That's yours. I know it's old, but it's home. I also left you my savings and my retirement fund. It's not a fortune, but I hope it buys you time to breathe, to build, to live. You put your life on hold for me. Now, please, go live it. I closed my eyes. She always thought I'd given up my future for her, but she was wrong. She was my future. And she still is. Mr. Blake cleared his throat and walked me through the details. The house. Fully paid off, small, but in a good neighborhood. Retirement fund and savings. Modest, but enough for a fresh start. Maybe college again, or a business. Personal items. Her books, her photo albums, her journals. All left to me. No drama, no catches, no mention of Lila. I left with a folder in hand and a weight on my chest. Later that night, I sat in Mom's armchair with the folder on my lap. The house was too quiet. I missed the sound of her slippers on the tile. I missed her humming while making tea. I looked around at the wall, faded yellow, covered in framed photos. Us at the beach, us baking cookies, us before the chemo. It was all mine now. I thought maybe I could start over, take night classes, volunteer somewhere, do something she'd be proud of. But 2 weeks later, the phone rang. It was Lila. Hey, Rye, she said chipper. Listen, I have great news. I went ahead and registered the Helen Rivers Foundation. I used some of my savings to get it started. I'm working with a designer for the website. We've already got a few early donors lined up. I blinked. You did what? I told you at the funeral I wanted to do something in her name. You said it sounded good. No, I said maybe. You said you'd handle the details. I didn't say I wanted you to use her name like that. Oh, come on. She laughed, airy. It's not like I'm doing anything shady. It's a good cause. And people already know me from my nonprofit work. It'll have credibility. I'll send you the link soon. I'm planning a launch gala in a month. She hung up before I could answer, and something in my stomach twisted hard. That was the moment I realized she wasn't just keeping her promise to honor Mom. She was making a move. And it wouldn't be the last one. For a few days, I tried to convince myself it wasn't a big deal. Maybe Lila really did want to do something kind. Maybe her foundation idea, however premature and flashy, was rooted in some twisted version of sincerity. But that optimism didn't last long. The emails started trickling in. A family friend forwarded me a post. Exciting news! The Helen Rivers Foundation is officially launching, dedicated to women's health advocacy and cancer support, in honor of the most selfless woman I've ever known. Underneath was a photo of Lila standing in front of a white brick wall, perfectly lit, holding a framed picture of my mother. Her caption? For the woman who taught me what compassion looks like. What compassion? Lila hadn't called once during my mother's final months, not once. I stared at the screen, my jaw tight, trying to find a version of this that didn't feel like theft. But the more I scrolled, the more I saw her smiling face pop up. LinkedIn updates, Instagram Reels, even a teaser TikTok announcing a Legacy Gala fundraiser for the new foundation. And then came the requests. A second cousin texted, Hey, Lila says you're helping with the foundation stuff. Can I donate in Bitcoin? A college friend messaged, Cool to see your mom's memory living on. That gala looks sick. Can you hook me up with tickets? I didn't respond. I didn't know what to say. If I spoke up now, I'd look petty, like I couldn't share the spotlight. But the truth was, it wasn't hers to spotlight. So I went quiet. I stayed off social media, I didn't answer calls, I canceled dinner plans with friends and stopped replying to family chat messages. Every time I stepped into my mother's room, it felt like betrayal. Her name, her image, her legacy, all being manipulated for curated applause. I spent nights reading her journals instead. I found scribbles about her dreams to volunteer in hospice care after retirement, notes about the cancer support group she never got to join, even ideas for a blog she never launched. Stories from the quiet ones. That hit me, because that's who she was. Quiet, present, real, not a brand. I walked past my laptop 100 times a day, fighting the urge to pull up Lila's fake charity website again. When I finally did, I noticed the donation page was live. Credit cards accepted. She listed fake stories. One was about a single mom helped with treatment funding. The name was generic, but the story mirrored ours. And I snapped. Not publicly, not yet. I made a spreadsheet. I started logging every detail, every quote, every photo of mom being used, every dollar amount mentioned, every donor I could identify. I even created a separate email under a fake name and signed up for Lila's foundation newsletter. She was clever, but not careful. One night, I saw a new donor listed in a shout-out on her Instagram story, a tech investor I recognized from an old internship. And that's when the thought struck. She's not doing this for charity. She's doing this for access. Lila was building a reputation on a grave, and I wasn't going to let her bury the truth along with my mother. It started with a draft. Just a Word document. No hashtags, no photos. Just the truth. Plain, cold, and sharp. I didn't intend to post it at first. I just needed to get it out of me like poison drawn from a wound. But the more I typed, the more I saw clearly. No one else was going to protect my mother's name. That was my job. And if Lila had turned her legacy into a marketing stunt, then I was going to turn that into a reckoning. I titled it, The Truth About the Helen Rivers Foundation. And I wrote, "My name is Ryan Rivers. I'm Helen's son. If you've donated to the newly launched Helen Rivers Foundation, you deserve to know that my mother never approved of it." She never spoke to Lila about it. She never expressed a desire for a charity in her name. In fact, she left very specific instructions in her will, including how she wanted her memory honored. She believed in quiet acts of service, not photo ops. She spent her final months in our living room, not a hospital bed because we couldn't afford it. Not once did Lila offer help. Not once did she visit. And yet, now she's collecting donations in my mother's name. Through a foundation my mother never agreed to, using stories that are not hers to tell. I'm not writing this for revenge. I'm writing this because my mom taught me that integrity matters even when no one's looking. So, here I am, looking. I sat back in the dark, lit only by the glow of my laptop. I didn't hit publish not yet. Instead, I sent it to 3 people I trusted. Jenna, a journalist friend I knew from college. Uncle David, one of Mom's few remaining relatives who hadn't fallen under Lila's Instagram spell. My mother's old nursing supervisor, Nora, who'd stayed in touch long after the retirement party. All 3 responded within the hour. Jenna replied with just one word. Powerful. Then, let me help you get this in front of the right people. Uncle David's message was longer. I've had a bad feeling about this too. I didn't want to stir things. But your mom deserves better than what Lila's doing. I'll support whatever you decide. Nora sent a photo. It was of my mom at work in her scrubs, holding a premature baby close to her chest. The caption said, "The real Helen Rivers. Always behind the scenes, always saving lives." That did it. I opened Facebook, I copy-pasted the post, and I hit publish. I didn't check it again that night. I turned off my phone, closed the laptop, and for the first time in weeks I slept. Not well, but without guilt. By morning, my phone was on fire. 32 missed calls, over 100 text messages. And the Facebook post? It had already hit 12,000 shares. At first I thought my phone was glitching. I'd never seen numbers like that in my life. But as I scrolled through the notifications, it became clear the post had struck a nerve. Not just with people who knew my mother, but with total strangers, nurses, caregivers, people who'd been manipulated by fake charities, people who'd lost loved ones and knew what grief really looked like. And then I saw Lila's name in the notifications. She hadn't messaged me directly, but she had posted a long-winded response on her own page, written in that sickly sweet influencer tone she had perfected over the years. It's incredibly hurtful to see my cousin use his grief to attack my efforts to make a difference. The Helen Rivers Foundation was born from love, not ego. I never claimed to speak for Helen. I simply wanted to honor her. I will continue my work in her name, because real legacy can't be silenced by hate. I stared at her post for a full 5 minutes. Not because I was surprised, but because of how calculated it was. She didn't deny anything. She just reframed the truth. She cast herself as the visionary, me as the bitter obstacle. The comments under her post, they were split. Some gushed support. Don't let him drag you down, Queen. You're doing amazing work. Others were harsher. Why are you using someone's name without the family's permission? This feels shady. Jenna, the journalist friend, called me around noon. Her voice was buzzing with urgency. You don't realize what you've done, do you? What do you mean? This isn't just a viral post. This is a story. A big one. Especially if we can prove the foundation's finances aren't clean. I've already pulled the registry documents. She filed as a 501c3. But no EIN number, no board of directors, no transparency on donations. That's not just unethical, that's possibly illegal. I felt a chill crawl down my back. Would you go on record? She asked. Only if I can stay in control of how it's told. Deal. That night, her article dropped. Legacy or lies? One family's battle over a stolen name. It exploded. Reddit picked it up. Twitter dissected it. A podcast host with 2 million followers read the entire article aloud in an emergency episode titled The Inheritance Heist. The next morning, I woke up to another surprise. An email from someone claiming to have worked with Lila at a previous nonprofit. They said they left after suspecting she was misusing funds, and they'd be willing to talk. I forwarded it to Jenna. By day 3, everything was unraveling for Lila. Donors were demanding receipts. A tech investor posted a screenshot of his $10,000 donation and wrote, "Looks like I got scammed. If this turns out to be fake, I'll be contacting my lawyers." And the best part? Lila still hadn't reached out to me personally. She wasn't interested in truth, only in optics. And right now, her optics were collapsing. For the first time in weeks, I stepped out of the house. Went for a walk, bought a real coffee. Let myself breathe. Mom would have told me not to stoop to revenge, but this didn't feel like revenge anymore. It felt like justice. 3 days after the article went live, Lila finally called me. I recognized the number instantly, but let it ring. Then again, and again. The 4th time, I picked up, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to see how she would play it. "Ryan," she said. No hello. Just my name, sharp and defensive. "Lila? I can't believe you'd do this. Publicly, you blindsided me." "No," I replied calmly. "You blindsided me. You used my mother's name, my grief, without asking, without even pretending to care." There was a pause. She was trying to regroup. "I wasn't trying to hurt you. This was my way of grieving, of honoring her. You don't get to decide what that looks like for everyone." "Honoring her?" I scoffed. "You called a gala a tribute, Lila. You printed tote bags with her face. You sold VIP passes. You You had people donate to a foundation that doesn't even exist on paper. That's not true, she snapped. I registered everything legally. You registered a name, that's all. No EIN, no financial transparency, no board, no compliance with charitable standards. You raised tens of thousands in my mom's name, and you have no legal right to do so. Her tone shifted, colder, clipped. Ryan, you're clearly not in a good place right now. I think you're spiraling. Look at what you've done. You've turned the entire internet against me. I didn't reply. I spoke with Aunt Margot, she continued, referring to her mother, my mom's estranged sister. She agrees that this is all getting out of hand. You need to stop. Oh, so now you care what family thinks? You ignored them for years until it suited your image. Lila lowered her voice. Ryan, if you don't take the post down, I will sue you for defamation. That made me laugh. Good, I said. Please sue me. Then we can go to court and make everything public record. You really want that? Click. She hung up, and I stood there for a while, the silence heavy. Then I opened my laptop, updated the Facebook post with a small note. Update, Lila has threatened legal action. I welcome it. The receipts are ready. Jenna texted me within minutes. Want to make it really public? We've got a morning news slot lined up if you're interested. National. I hesitated. I wasn't doing this for fame. I wasn't even comfortable being in front of a camera. But the thought of not standing up for my mother, of letting Lila control the narrative, that was worse. I'll do it, I replied, but only if they spell my mom's name right. H-E-L-E-N. No extra letters, no fluff. That weekend, I sat across from a local news anchor in a small studio, hands folded in my lap, trying not to fidget. Lights were too bright. The questions were rehearsed, but the story was mine. And I told it. All of it. By the time I walked out, the segment had been clipped and shared across every major platform. The hashtag #Justice for Helen was trending. And Lila? She posted a tearful selfie video that afternoon. I never wanted to hurt anyone, she sniffled. I only ever wanted to spread love. The comments weren't buying it. You raised money off a dead woman and lied about it. No apology to Ryan, no receipts, just tears. Lila's influencer brand began to collapse. Brands quietly pulled partnerships. A prominent donor made a public statement distancing himself. I'd exposed the lie, but I hadn't yet rebuilt the truth that was coming next. After the news segment aired, I did something I hadn't done in months. I packed a bag, shut off my phone, and left town. Not forever, just long enough to breathe. I drove up to a cabin 2 hours outside the city, a place my mom and I used to go when I was a kid. No Wi-Fi, no cell signal, just a lake, a fireplace, and silence so deep it felt like my nervous system could finally reboot. For 3 days, I didn't check a single notification, and for the first time, I began to feel the grief, real grief, that I'd been holding back all this time. It wasn't just about my mom dying, it was about everything that happened after. The invasion, the manipulation, the performance of mourning, weaponized by someone who should have been family. I cried, I journaled, I hiked the same trails we once took together, and on the third night, I pulled out an old box I'd packed last minute. Inside were a few of my mom's things I hadn't looked at since the funeral. Her stethoscope, a faded photo of us at my college graduation, and a small leather-bound notebook with her name embossed in gold. It wasn't a diary, it was a planner, and tucked between the pages were loose notes, quotes she liked, patient stories, and one envelope marked in her handwriting. In case I go first. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a letter. Ryan, if you're reading this, I'm gone. But that means you're still here. And that means something. I know you hate attention. You're not like me. You don't need people to see your heart to know it's good. But please please promise me you won't disappear from the world just to protect it from your grief. When the time comes, I hope you'll share my story. Not for legacy, not for ego, but because maybe, just maybe, it helps someone else carry their pain a little better. And if anyone tries to rewrite that story for their own gain, fight back. Kindly but firmly, with your whole heart. You're the best thing I ever did. Love always, Mom. I broke. Not in an angry, vengeful way, but in the kind of release that feels like a flood finally breaching the dam. She knew. Somehow she always knew. That night, I decided I wasn't just going to expose Lila. I was going to reclaim my mother's legacy on my terms. I returned home the next day, turned my phone back on. Dozens of messages, emails. One from a lawyer representing a group of donors threatening to sue Lila. Another from a small charity offering to help me build a real initiative in my mom's name. But the one that stood out, an anonymous tip. Check the foundation's PayPal link. The account's linked to Lila's personal email with screenshots attached. That was the final nail. I forwarded everything to Jenna. Within 24 hours, she had confirmation from 3 independent sources. The foundation's donation portal was depositing funds directly into Lila's personal bank account. Fraud on record. My phone buzzed again, this time from a private number. I didn't answer, because now I didn't need to speak. The truth was loud enough. When I first opened the inbox connected to the memorial page, I expected spam. Instead, I found people. Real people. Nurses who had worked beside my mom. Patients who remembered her kindness. Strangers who had read about her and were moved to act. But what hit me hardest were the volunteers. One message stood out. It came from a woman named Amara. Hi Ryan, I'm a social worker at a community clinic your mom used to volunteer at on her days off. I just wanted you to know she never took a dime. She even brought her own snacks for the patients. If you're thinking about setting something up in her name, I want to help. She attached a photo. It was a snapshot of a bulletin board in the clinic, with a handwritten note in faded pen. Dr. Helen's Corner, sit, breathe. You're safe here. I cried again. Not out of sadness this time, but gratitude. My mother's legacy had already lived quietly in the people she helped. I didn't need to build something new to honor her. I just needed to connect the dots. So I started replying to everyone. I told them I didn't want a flashy foundation. I wasn't trying to go viral. I just wanted to direct the donations already pouring into places where they could actually help. No celebrity galas. No monogrammed tote bags. Just action. I teamed up with Jenna and her friend, a pro bono non-profit attorney named Raj, and we mapped it out. We launched a transparent fund, the Helen Rivers Grant. It would do 3 things. 1, directly support frontline nurses and caregivers through small emergency grants. 2, provide scholarships to low-income students entering nursing programs. 3, fund community wellness corners, like the one where Dr. Helen's Corner first appeared. All proceeds would be tracked publicly. No salaries, no events. Just a ledger, a mission, and a team of volunteers. When I announced it online, Kromainomang quietly with a link and a paragraph explaining our goals, I didn't expect much, but something about it resonated. Within 48 hours, we had $18,000 in verified donations, 43 volunteer applications, 3 clinics reaching out for collaboration. And best of all, every cent was going to people who needed it. Meanwhile, Lila had gone silent. No new posts, no interviews. Her branded Instagram had been taken offline. According to a contact Jenna had in influencer circles, she'd been dropped by 3 major partnerships and quietly uninvited from 2 upcoming conferences. I wasn't gloating. I wasn't even thinking about her anymore. Because every hour I spent on this new fund, every message from a nurse, every request for help, It reminded me that grief, when directed with purpose, doesn't just hollow you out, it builds something real. That night I sat at my kitchen table staring at the list of our first 10 grant recipients. Single moms, first-generation students, a nurse recovering from surgery who couldn't afford her rent. Each name was a victory, not over Lila, but for my mother. I whispered it out loud just once. "We did it, Mom." And I swear in the silence that followed, I could almost hear her voice. "Took you long enough." Greater than... It was a Sunday when I saw her again. The first time since the call. I hadn't planned it. I was dropping off supplies to a local clinic we'd partnered with when I saw her across the parking lot. Leela, no entourage, no makeup team, no camera crew or curated lighting. Just her. Hair pulled into a tight bun, sunglasses too big for her face, hunched over like the air itself was heavier now. I paused, debating whether to walk away, but then she looked up and froze. We locked eyes. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she walked toward me, slow and cautious, like I was a mirror she couldn't avoid anymore. "You've destroyed my life," she said before I could even speak. Her voice wasn't angry, just tired, cracked. I didn't respond. She kept going. "Do you know what it's like to wake up and see your face in a meeting? To have strangers calling you a thief? My inbox is full of death threats. My sponsors are gone. My family won't even look at me." I let her words hang. Finally, I said, "You built your life on a lie, Lila." "I didn't destroy it." "You did." Her eyes flashed. "It was one mistake." "No," I said, firm. "It was a pattern, a scheme. You used my mom's name, someone who trusted you, to scam people who genuinely wanted to help. And when you got caught, your first instinct wasn't to apologize. It was to silence me." She looked down. "You don't understand," she muttered. I was drowning. The sponsorships weren't enough. My rent went up. I had followers expecting me to launch something big after the engagement spike from my mom's funeral. I thought if I made it work just once, I could clean it up later. "That's not grief, Lila," I said, voice steady. "That's fraud." Silence. She didn't argue. For once, there was no filter, no performative outrage. Just a woman who had finally run out of ways to pretend she wasn't the villain in her own story. "I don't know what you want from me," she whispered. "I don't want anything," I said. "I've already done what I needed to do." Then I pulled a folded paper from my jacket pocket. "This is a letter. It's from one of the first grant recipients, a nursing student in Toronto. She said your fake charity announcement inspired her to apply. Now she's fully funded through a real fund." I handed her the letter. She took it with trembling fingers. "You don't need to read it now," I added, "but I hope you do." Then I turned to walk away. Just as I reached my car, I heard her voice again. Softer this time. "Ryan?" I paused. She hesitated, then said, "I really did love your mom." I didn't turn around. I just nodded one, a small, tired nod, then got in and drove off. Because maybe she did. But love means nothing if it's only used when convenient. Love, like grief, demands truth. It was early spring when the envelope arrived. Thick, cream-colored, with no return address. For a moment, I thought it might be hate mail. After everything that had happened, my address had leaked. Courtesy of a friend who'd sold the story to a gossip blog. I'd gotten my share of threats, mostly anonymous keyboard warriors warning me to watch my back for ruining a good woman's reputation. But this envelope was different. Inside was a letter, typed, legal sounding, polished, a cease and desist. From Lila's new attorney. The letter claimed that I had defamed her character and damaged her earning potential with unverified accusations and malicious misrepresentation. It demanded a public retraction, the removal of all posts relating to her, and a formal apology within 10 days. I laughed out loud when I finished reading it. because just 2 days earlier I had received something else. A certified notice from the Consumer Fraud Division confirming that an official investigation had been opened into the Helen Rivers Foundation and its alleged misuse of donor funds. Jenna, ever the shark, had already forwarded them every email, screenshot, and bank trace we had. Raj, our pro bono lawyer, had built a bulletproof digital case file. So I wasn't afraid, but I was tired. Tired of playing chess with someone who treated consequences like inconveniences. Still, we responded, formally through Raj. And our response was calm, measured, and devastating. We categorically deny any defamation. All statements made by Mr. Rivers were supported by evidence, verified by third parties, and consistent with protected speech concerning a matter of public interest. Furthermore, if your client proceeds with legal action, we will file a countersuit for fraud, emotional distress, and defamation, and subpoena all financial records associated with the Helen Rivers Foundation, including all direct deposits into your client's account. We heard nothing back, but the story wasn't over. A week later, I received a second letter. This one handwritten, shaky, and marked with careful loops and uneven lines. It was from a woman named Marie, Lila's grandmother. Dear Ryan, I am so sorry for everything my granddaughter did. I raised her after her parents passed, and I thought I had taught her right from wrong. But somehow she lost herself in this world that I can't understand. I was friends with your mother, you know. We worked together at the hospital in the 80s. Helen was the best of us. I donated to the fund because I truly believed it was real. When I found out what Lila had done, I cried for days. I've since given what I could to your new fund. It's not much, but I wanted you to know not everyone in our family agrees with what happened. Your mother would be proud of you. Sincerely, Marie Easton. I folded the letter and placed it in a box I had labeled Mom Legacy. That box was getting full now, with grant applications, thank you notes, old photos, and handwritten words from strangers whose lives had intersected with hers in small but meaningful ways. It was strange. In trying to defend my mother's memory, I had found community, not followers, not clout, but real people. And a reason to keep going. Because the truth wasn't just about exposing someone else's lie, it was about living what my mother stood for, long after the noise faded. And that noise? It was starting to fade now, but something else was rising in its place. 1 year to the day. That's how long it had been since the reading of the will, since my cousin's betrayal, since the anger, the fire, the pain of watching someone twist my mother's name into a prop for their brand. And now, I stood outside the glass doors of a small community clinic on the outskirts of the city. It didn't look like much. A squat 2-story brick building. Faded posters in the windows. A chipped sign with hand-painted letters. Doctor. Helen's Corner. Wellness starts here. My breath caught in my throat. Inside, kids laughed. Nurses moved briskly through narrow halls. Volunteers organized small bags of hygiene kits and nutrition packs. In the waiting area, a teenage girl in a hoodie was reading a pamphlet on how to become a nurse. Her shoes were duct taped together. Her eyes were full of hope. And taped to the wall above her was a framed photo of my mother. Not a headshot. Not some posed hospital portrait. It was a candid. Her laughing, flower on her cheek, holding a paper plate at a bake sale. Someone had scribbled underneath, "Kindness is free, give it away," like Dr. Helen did. I didn't even know this photo existed. A volunteer approached. Her name tag said Cassie. She looked young, maybe 22, with nervous energy and a bright smile. "You're Ryan, right?" I nodded, caught off guard. "Amara said you might come. You're kind of a legend around here." I laughed softly. "I hope not." "No, really," she said. "You made this possible. The grant helped us hire our first full-time counselor. direction. I got in my car, started the engine, and glanced at the dashboard. Taped next to my mom's old parking pass was a letter from Marie, the last thing she had written to me. I whispered, more to the silence than anyone. We're good now, Mom. I think we're finally good. And with that, I drove home. Not to the past, not to the pain, but to the future we were building. One act of kindness at a time. It was almost poetic, how things came full circle, not in a dramatic showdown, but in the sterile stillness of a courtroom. The fraud case against Lila had moved slowly. Investigators combed through financial statements, PayPal receipts, GoFundMe transfers, and every influencer partnership she had pitched using the Helen Rivers Foundation name. At first, it seemed like she might walk away with a slap on the wrist. A few community service hours, maybe a fine. But then more donors came forward. One had given $20,000. Another had canceled her daughter's college savings contributions just to honor a hero nurse. A retired couple had handed over their annual travel fund, saying it was the least they could do. Those stories, like stacked, painful, human, built the case. By the time the court date arrived, Lila had changed lawyers 3 times. She looked thinner, her designer wardrobe traded for modest pantsuits. Her hair was darker, her Instagram was private. I wasn't there to gloat, but I wasn't going to stay home either. When I entered the courtroom, I saw Marie sitting on the back bench. Spine straight, eyes glassy but proud. Lila sat at the defendant's table, eyes lowered. Her attorney pled for leniency, claimed she was young, that she'd made a series of poor but well-intentioned decisions, that her emotional state had been compromised by grief and stress. The prosecutor stood and methodically read the charges. Wire fraud, misappropriation of charitable funds, false advertising, and defamation. Then came the testimonies. Jenna, Raj, several donors, and finally me. I didn't go for drama, I went with truth. I told them how I'd held my mom's hand as she took her last breath in our tiny living room. How we couldn't afford hospice. How the people who truly loved her didn't post about it. They showed up. I spoke about the first time I saw Lila's fake charity post, how it felt like a second betrayal, and how I knew, then and there, that I had 2 choices. Get angry and stay angry, or turn that betrayal into something meaningful. And I spoke about the grants, the clinic, the young women and men now walking a path lit by my mother's name. The real one, not the brand. The judge listened without comment. When the sentence came down, it wasn't harsh, but it wasn't a free pass either. Lila was fined, placed under probation, barred from starting any nonprofit or accepting donations for 5 years, and ordered to pay restitution to the misled donors. But the most poetic justice? She was assigned 600 hours of community service at a public nursing home, my mother's old job. As I walked out of the courtroom, Marie caught up with me. She slipped her arm into mine like she used to with Lila as a child. She may never thank you, she said quietly, but I will. Outside, the sky was wide and blue. I stood there a long time, letting the sun warm my face. And for the first time since this began, I felt light.